How to record your first rock song in Presonus Studio One. One of my most popular videos on this channel was how to record your first song in Presonus Studio One. I decided to do an update on this version since some of you have been asking about how to record and mix drums and also how to record and mix electric guitars. So I figured why not take my YouTube song that we've been using for a couple of videos now and make a rock version. So if you're interested in recording this kind of music where it requires electric guitars, bass guitars, and drum set, then this video is for you. I'm a huge fan of Weezer, Coldplay, all that kind of 90s, early 2000s alt rock, I guess you would call it. But here's what we're gonna do. In today's video, I've got Presonus Studio One. That's the software that we're using to record music with. I've got version 6 professional. Everything I do in this video is gonna be based off of the stock plugins that you can find in their artist version, and I guess even their prime version if you decide to go the free route. But I'm gonna show you every step of the process with recording things like electric guitars, bass guitar, drum set, and some vocals. So I'll show you my process of recording all those different instruments and the vocal as well. And then I'll show you each step of the process when it comes to mixing. Mixing is basically where we take the raw tracks, we make them sound a little bit better. So we're gonna use EQ, compression, maybe a little bit of reverb so that we get a nice rock sound. And then hopefully you can take away some of these tips and techniques and use them in your own situation if you're recording in Presonus Studio One. If you're interested in any of the gear that I'm using in this home studio, feel free to check out the Amazon links I've got in the description of this video. I've kind of set up an Amazon influencer page, so it's got all my studio gear and also some recommended gear if you're looking to get into recording and you don't have too big of a budget to work with. There's still some great stuff you can check out there. How exciting. Now the first thing we need to do is open up Presonus Studio One. If you've never opened up or installed Presonus Studio One, I've got a couple videos on my channel I want to recommend to you. One of them is 10 things to do before you record your first song in Presonus Studio One. That's kind of a opening beginner situation. And then there's a video I've done about how to get started and set up using your USB audio interface from Presonus Studio One. That covers the audio box. Even if that's not your audio interface of choice, it's going to cover a lot of the installation process and starting your first song. So here I've got the home screen in Presonus Studio One. You always want to make sure that you've got your audio interface selected. Mine is the RME Babyface Pro. It's labeled Fireface USB under the setup tab. I'm going to be recording this one at 48 kilohertz. You can record it at whatever sample rate you want, but I'm going to go up here where it says new. So I'm going to click the plus button. I'm going to name this the YouTube song. I'll call it YouTube Rock Song. So that's the title of my song. Even if you don't have a title, put something in there, because even if it's called Bluebird and Green Leaf, having some sort of recognizable name is going to save you in the long run. You can always rename it later. Under this title of the song, I want to tell it where I'm going to be saving all my files to. I recommend, if you can, open up one of your external SSDs to record onto that. It'll make moving the project around easier, or you can just keep it on your documents folder. When you install Presonus Studio One, it defaults to putting a Studio One folder in your documents folder or my documents folder. And then of course I got my sample rate set to 48 kilohertz for this one, and I'm just going to click OK. Soon as I do, I've got a brand new session in Presonus Studio One with nothing going on. So first thing I want to do is close this Browse tab and take a look at the emptiness. So now we need to fill this up with tracks, but before we do, we need to decide on what tempo we're going to be performing this song to. In 2024, just about 99.9% of the songs you're listening to out there have been recorded to some sort of click track or a metronome. Again, if you're doing rock music and you really don't like computers at all, you can skip this step. You don't need to use a click track. But for anyone that's interested, down here where it says tempo, this is actually a tap tempo feature. So if I know the tempo of the song, I can just tap it out and it will change the number. If you know exactly what tempo you want it to be, you can just click where it says 105 or whatever number, type in a number like 88 and hit enter. Now your tempo is set to 88. And you can turn on your metronome by either hitting C on the keyboard, or you can just click this picture of the metronome here. All right. I'm not sure what my tempo is going to be yet, so let me tap something out. All right, it's saying 79. That seems pretty good to me. Let's just keep it at 79. Now we need to talk about how we're monitoring. usually you would have your studio monitors. For the sake of this YouTube video, I'm gonna be wearing these headphones, and these headphones serve two purposes for me. These are closed back headphones. These are DT770 Pro from Barry Dynamic. These are great, comfortable headphones. They are kind of expensive, but what's great about them is that they're very good at isolating. So if you're recording drums or anything that's pretty loud, even if you're recording vocals and acoustic guitar, having a closed back pair of headphones, or a lot of times in my YouTube videos, you've seen me using the Shure in-ear monitors. I'm just gonna use these today. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug these into my audio interface. I've also got a headphone extension cable. It's like a 25-foot Roland extension cable. So I'll plug into that now. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll run this through my belt loop, because in this room, I'm recording drums, all this sorts of stuff. I don't want to trip over this wire and it get yanked out from underneath. All right, so now we've got the headphones on. I want to check the tempo of the song. I make sure the metronome is blue like we were talking about earlier. And if I hit the space bar, I should be able to hear the click track. All right, sounds good to me. Anytime you want to hit play or pause, just hit the space bar. All right, so the first thing I want to do is add a track for my electric guitar. So I'm going to click this plus button up here for add tracks. Make sure it's named whatever you want to label it. I'll call this one electric guitar. I want one electric guitar track. I'm going to use green as the color. And then the input is actually coming from the electric guitar direct, which is the third input on my audio interface. That's coming from my Strymon Iridium, which is a pedal that emulates the sound of a mic'd up guitar amp. Okay, so basically my Stratocaster, this is an American Professional Strat, single coils going straight into my tuner pedal. Out of my tuner pedal, it's going into my Strymon Iridium. I'll take a picture of my pedal board. None of the other pedals are engaged. I just want to be using the Strymon Iridium. And then if I want to add reverb, delay, any sort of fancy stuff like that, I'll just add it in the software later on. It's going to help with recording, just in case I make a mistake and set the wrong delay time. So I've got it coming from my electric guitar direct. I'm going to click OK. Soon as I do, I can put on my headphones here. And as soon as I click this record enable button, I should be able to see and hear I'm getting a signal. Okay, I turned off the software monitoring on Presonus Studio One because my audio interface, the RME stuff, it allows me to monitor direct from the software. So anytime you have an opportunity to monitor based off of the hardware inserts on the RME Babyface Pro, or your Presonus interface, use that, because whenever I use this software monitoring from Presonus, you're going to hear a delay. See, it sounds like I have some sort of like slapback delay. Well, that's only because I'm hearing two signals at the same time. So I'll turn that one off. And with all that being said, I pretty much just need to play the guitar with the click track on. Make sure you got your volume set at an appropriate level. I'm still not sure what key I want to do this one in just yet. I might capo up. All right, so let's record some electric guitar. All right, so let's take a listen to that and see how it turned out. I'm gonna turn off the click track with the C. Anywhere above the audio track, you have the measure numbers. So up here, it kind of looks like a ruler with inches. Anywhere you click with your pointer, you can click, hold down, drag this down, it'll zoom in, or I can drag up to zoom out. I wanna zoom in right here to measure 2, that's where we started. So if I click on beat 3 of measure 1 and hit spacebar, I should hear the guitar. Since we don't have a demo, you're only hearing the electric guitar right now, but it's just enough to go off of that I'm actually going to jump over and start recording drums, because as soon as I can get drums, I'll have a little bit more feel of what's going on in the song other than just what's in my head. So this is mainly the first guitar part, okay? Whoever is singing the song, if I'm singing the song as lead in the band, that is what I will be playing. I am gonna record some more electric guitar in the future, but that electric guitar stuff I'm adding is gonna be really distorted, heavy stuff. And I'd like to record drums next because anywhere I'm emphasizing with the drums is gonna be good. So when recording drums, obviously you need a lot more inputs on your audio interface. I've got an audio interface that has an optical in, or it's called ADAT in. If you have a 2-channel audio interface that has ADAT or optical in, what that allows you to do is plug in 2 audio interfaces, or you can have multiple microphone preamps. Because when you're recording drums, you really need a lot more than 2 microphones, just if you're doing something a little bit modern. It's totally possible to record drums with 2 microphones, might make a good video in the future, but what that enables me to do is to use my really old and affordable Sapphire Pro 40. It has 8 microphone preamps in it, and I've got that plugged into my RME Babyface Pro. So I can go ahead and create some new tracks here, and I'm just gonna call it Kick for now, and I wanna have 7 tracks, okay? So starting with the hi-hat track, I'm just gonna call it that for now. I've got all my inputs labeled on my audio interface. You can see this in other videos, but essentially you just wanna add a track for each of the microphones on the drums. On my kick drum, I have a Beta 52 microphone just inside the sound hole. I've got an SM7B on the snare top. I've got 2 Sennheiser clip-on tom mics for my rack tom and my floor tom. And then I'm using what's called underheads. So I have an SM57 underneath my hi-hat. And then I've got an Audio Technica, small diaphragm, little pencil condenser mic that's underneath my ride cymbal. So that's my drum setup. I also use my large diaphragm condenser mic, my TLM103. I use that plugged in usually over here, and that's called my room mic. So let me go ahead and label all of these appropriately. So we'll have kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, hi-hat, ride. And all I'm doing is once I've labeled one of these, before I hit enter, I'm hitting the tab button. When you tab, it tabs to the next track down there. And I'll call this one room. And then I need to make sure I've got all my inputs going to the right place. So on the kick drum mic, I actually need this to be where it says kick. Snare drum needs to be my snare channel, which is ADAT 4, okay? My tom 1 is on ADAT 5. Tom 2 is on ADAT 6. Hi-hat is here on ADAT 1. Ride cymbal is ADAT 2. And my room mic is gonna be channel 1, but I need to grab that real quick. Okay, so now I've got my TLM103 over here plugged into channel 1. I need to arm all of these for recording, so I'm gonna hold Shift, select all of the tracks, and then click that same record enable. And while I'm at it, I wanna turn off the software monitoring from Presonus Studio One. All these drum tracks, I like my drums to be red, so I'm gonna change the color as well. Just click over there where it has the color function. Then my RME interface, just to make sure we can all hear what's going on. I wanna unmute all of the channels that I'm using to record with today. Sometimes on Sapphire Pro 40, the optical cable is a little loose. So if I clap my hands, you should notice all my drum tracks just came alive, which is very good. TLM103 here on channel 1. I need to give that phantom power. I'm gonna turn that down. All right, good. Now I'll go ahead and pad it while we're at it, because that TLM103 is gonna be quite sensitive. So now I can put my headphones on. We're gonna swivel over to the drum set so you can see what's going on in drum world. One of the things I'm doing in Presonus Studio One is I've set up a loop region. So if you click and drag above the measure numbers, you can select a region and then hit the question mark key or the slash key. It'll enable a loop. If I set the loop so that it will continuously loop over itself, I can get as many drum takes as I want. I don't have to go back over to the computer. So when you see it come to the end of the loop, you'll see it start over and it starts recording over again and again. Every time it loops around, it adds another take. So if I like take 3, I don't like take 2, or I like take 3 for half of it and then want take 7, however many takes your computer can handle. It's just a neat way to record so I don't have to keep running back to the computer over and over again. Now let's record drums. All right, as soon as I get back to the computer, you can see where did all of my drum tracks go. Well, if you click and drag, zoom in down here, anywhere I select in these red rectangles, you see at the bottom left, there's these little burger stacks. That means I've got layers saved underneath. So if I right click, I can go to select take, and I'll select take 3. As soon as I do, I think take 3 went the best. You can see that take 1, as usual, kind of not super confident on what I was going to do, especially at the beginning. But I'm going to take a listen to take 3. I can select all of my tracks, select from kick, hold down shift, click down to where it says room, turn off record enable. These are unmixed. So this whole process, you probably heard an example of the song at the end. Just know that when you're recording instruments, when you're recording stuff, it's not going to sound finished, and don't expect it to sound finished, especially with drummers. Drummers are used to hearing like a lot of compression and stuff on your drums. If you're recording like I do, where you're not using any external devices, you're just clean recording everything, you just got to be aware of, now if something was played incorrectly, then by all means re-record when you can. But the tones and stuff, we'll be able to manipulate a lot of that stuff later on. Let's just take a listen to the song from the beginning and hear what we got. Nice. Now the room mic, just to make mention of this, I'm pretty sure if I zoomed in on what's going on with the room mic and some of the others, if I want to zoom in on the actual waves, like right now, it doesn't look like there's a lot happening. At the bottom right of the screen, there's 2 little hamburgers again. If you click and hold this and drag up, you'll be able to see it's not turning, it's not manipulating the audio, it's not making it louder, but it's visually giving us an idea of what's going on. So it's like using a microscope on the waveforms. If I zoom in a bunch, you can see that some of the phase stuff is just a little bit all over the place. The room mic is significantly further away than the rest of the microphones are. So I can anticipate that the room mic is going to be further away. There could be some flubbing, like almost my foot hitting the kick pedal and it causing some sort of rumble or sound. Sounds like something was going bo-bo. So I need to address that later in the mix if I can isolate it. But for now, those are good for the drums. I can go back to the electric guitar, and now I want to add, as I was doing those drum hits, this is where I'm adding my heavily distorted rhythm guitar tones. So let's grab the guitar. All right, so I'm adding another guitar track. What I can simply do is just right click up here and go to duplicate track. If I duplicate the track, it's not duplicating the audio that was with it, but it just simply adds another electric guitar and it adds the number 2. I'm gonna do this one more time as well because I wanna have 3 of them at some point. I'm gonna record enable electric guitar 2. And now I'm grabbing my pick and I wanna have this much more distorted tone. This time, this run through the song, I specifically want to match up with the drums when they're hitting that bam, bam. So see what chord that's happening on. I'll see if I can do it as is. I'll turn my click track on, hitting the C key. And then down here at the bottom where it says record, here we go. Okay, sounds pretty good. I'm gonna go back here and take a listen. Something sounded a little weird. All right, if I want to solo a track, soloing a track, you essentially hit the S key on the keyboard. So that way you're only listening to what that track is. So if I click up here, 17. I want to figure out what's going on with the drums because here's where I had the flub. So I've got all these highlighted with the shift key, then I pressed S to solo it. There it is. It looks like Tom 2. It looks like I hit the microphone. So I'm gonna show you something to do in this situation. May not sound super natural, but if you hit 3 on the keyboard, it's a slice tool. And what I wanna do is I wanna cut this hit on the tom right here. I'm gonna go right at the beat 3. I'm gonna cut there, and I'm gonna cut at measure 4. Then I hit number 1 on the keyboard. I'm gonna grab this audio track, and if I hit D on the keyboard, it will duplicate that hit. Okay, let's take a listen to how that sounds. Okay, so if I unsolo the drums, same thing's happening right here. Let's isolate this one. Yeah. That might be something going on with the microphone cable. So again, let's do the same thing. I'm gonna cut right here at beat 3 and duplicate it. Anytime you hear that kind of stuff, that's like, I wanna say it's a technical error, and I would definitely need to re-record this in some sort of studio situation. I don't wanna have that kind of gargly stuff. Hopefully you can figure out if it's a microphone cable, or if I hit the microphone with my stick, I might need to move that microphone around to go somewhere else, but let's take a listen to it now. Okay, just gazing through the rest of the tom track. Let's see right here, it looks like it got really spiky. Nope. Okay, so that was probably the 2 spots that I was thinking of. I like the sound from the guitar. I'm gonna double track. Essentially, I'm just re-recording the same thing. I am gonna switch my pickup position. I'm gonna go to the neck and the mid pickup and do the same rhythm guitar sound, but then I'm gonna spread them out in just a little bit. So I'm playing the exact same thing again. I'm re-recording because even though I'm re-recording the same part, my timing is not gonna be precise. It's not gonna be the exact same each time. So it'll get this really rock and roll width going on. Okay. Now this will get a little bit into the mixing territory, but I want you to hit this I key for the inspector up here. The inspector view is essentially giving us a lot of what the mix view has to offer, but it's off to the side. I really like using the mixer view. It's just a lot easier on the eyes. I'm gonna go to electric guitar 2, and right here above the word C, this is our panner. So I can move this guitar all the way to the left. So if you're wearing headphones, you should be able to hear this now. If I solo that track, I can move it to the right. All right, so I'm gonna put this one all the way to the left and then electric guitar 3 all the way to the right. Our initial first guitar is right down the middle, so let's take a listen to those. Sounds pretty cool. All right, so here I've got my Austin P-Bass. This one has been loaded with the Fender Custom Shop P-Bass pickups. You can find that on the Amazon links in the description as well. Other than that, it's pretty basic bass guitar. I'm gonna use this guitar pick to get some maybe punk rock tones. I need to add a bass track, so I'm gonna hit the plus button. Name this one bass. One channel of bass, and basses will be blue. And I want this to come in the same channel that my electric guitar was. So we're getting a good signal there. Now, unfortunately, I'm playing this one in G flat. G flat is not so fun to play on the guitar, but this is a trick that I like to do when you start getting so many tracks that are especially loud like this. Open up your mix window, go to where it says main, and on the main fader, it has 0 dB. If you click this 0 dB and type in -12, essentially brings down the volume of the tracks in my headphones. And I do that so that I can keep the volume of my bass guitar high, turn down the volume of the tracks. Because earlier, if I'm playing the bass guitar, I'm not able to hear the bass guitar because the tracks are so loud. So that's just a quick way to address that. So let's just play through the song with the bass guitar. Visually, I can already tell that the bass guitar is a lot quieter. We'll get used to gain staging in just a minute. I'll kind of show you the tips for that. A quick way to clip gain or add some more volume to the tracks. Probably be best to go through just add gain from the get-go. This one's not too far off. I'm just gonna click this blue or light blue colored square above the audio track. If I click and hold this down, and I drag it up, you'll notice that the track actually becomes louder and louder. And visually, I can just compare it to the other tracks and try to get something that's about in the same ballpark. I'll gain stage later, and if you don't know what gain stage is, just hang in there, we'll get to it. But let's take a listen now to the recorded tracks. I'll skip over here to this section. All right, again, just keep this in mind and perspective. Drums, guitars, there's no compression, there's no EQ. We've not gotten to mixing just yet. So I'm more listening to the performance of everything. I didn't mention this earlier. My bass is plugged into the same, it's using the same cable that my electric guitar was. I've only turned off the tube screamer and I've turned off the Strymon Iridium. So the bass guitar is essentially going through my pedal board and into the audio interface, okay? There's no effects, there's no compression, anything of the sort. All right, so now it's my least favorite time. We're gonna record some vocals, and the vocals are really gonna make this song make a little bit more sense. So I need to go up to the plus button, type in my name, say Chris Vocal. I'm gonna give this, how about let's go with yellow, And I am going to use the TLM 103 up here. So hopefully you can see this in the video, but this is the reflection filter. I made a video on this on my channel as well. Not super necessary in this room as I found out, but essentially this is a large diaphragm condenser mic, and I'm going to be singing into this. I'm not going to use a pop filter because I'm not very sibilant whenever I'm singing. I usually have to over enunciate because I kind of have like a nasally marbles sound. So anyway, we're going to record some vocals now. Same process I'm doing with the drums. I'm going to set the loop, and then I'm going to record as many takes as I can because it gives me some more options, or at least till I feel good about it.
So this video can have a chance in the algorithm stance. Hit subscribe.
Now I'm not sure I'm going to use a lot of doubles or background vocals, but just so I have them to choose from, I'm going to re-record 2 more lead vocals that I might could use them during like the heavier chorus section. So I'm just going to right click and go to duplicate and then record enable. Here we go. So in doing the vocals, I went ahead and recorded 3 lead vocals that are all just singing melody, and the only harmony part is just some oohs that I added. Maybe we could have fun with that going into the chorus. You'll hear those here. So that's 2 spread out. Just all right, so now it's time to mix the rock song, and I tell you, there's so many things you can do with mixing. There's so many different plugins and different ways of mixing that it's really going to be specific to whatever sort of song you're doing. I'm going to try and be as general as possible. So when we're mixing a vocal, if you want to copy the settings, you're welcome to do so, but your vocal is going to sound different than mine. My voice sounds different than a female's voice. The guitars may not be the exact same, but there are enough principles that'll carry over, and I'm going to be using the stock plugins only to mix this song. So let me put my headphones on and let's get started mixing. The first thing I want to point out is just some navigating things. I've already mentioned go up here and click and drag down to zoom in and up to zoom out. But there are these little burger stacks everywhere on Studio One, and you can use this one down here at the bottom left. You can expand what you're able to see on each of the tracks up and down like this. And then as I mentioned earlier, on the right side, you can expand or shrink, kind of like with a microscope, how much you're seeing of the audio files. The first thing I'm going to do before I get into slapping a bunch of plugins on this mix is I want to look through for errors. We already mentioned earlier the floor tom track. We had to duplicate this section here because there's something going on either with the cable or the mic itself where it has this little blip. But even better than that, if you can, like on a tom track, I'm not always hitting the toms. There are even some songs where I play the drums and I don't even hit the toms at all. Well, in such a situation, it's probably better just to mute the tom tracks or selectively mute them. The way that I selectively mute my tom tracks, like on this rack tom, for instance, I'll zoom in as close as I can so I find out where I'm actually hitting the tom. And as you can see, this rack tom is not being hit until measure 18 of this song. So what I can do is I can zoom in to measure 18, and I can hit 3 on the keyboard for my slice tool. I'm going to make a cut. Then I'm going to hit number 1, so I'm on my pointer. I select the audio region before I hit the rack tom, and I hit Shift M. What that does, whenever it's really grayed out like this, it's basically muted that tom track from all other parts of the song. On the floor tom, I hit the floor tom for this build section right here, and we've got a little bit of a blip. Let's take a listen to that in solo. Yeah, that needs to be addressed. So what I can do is, I don't hit the toms till right here, so I'm going to cut right here and hold Shift and hit M. So go through and make your cuts whenever you can. So on the tom tracks, you don't always have to have audio coming through. It'll make for a cleaner recording. And then it's just going through and panning. So the bottom right, you have your mix tab. This is very much like a console you would see in a live mixing situation. And here are my pan decisions. So I've got my lead vocal going right down the middle. The other two vocals, I don't want them in the middle, but I want them to go slightly to the left. So I'm gonna type L20 and then R20 and then enter. So my doubles are a little bit wide. And of course the oohs and ahs, which are the background vocals on this song, I've got one panned hard left, the other one panned hard right. My electric guitar, my main electric guitar is right down the middle, and then I've got the other two panned out, which we've done earlier. Kick and snare are always gonna be down the middle for the most part. My tom 1 is to the left 50. My tom 2, or my floor tom, is to the right 50. My hi-hat is to the left 50. My ride cymbal is to the right 50, so you can pan those all around. Now what you typically would do is you need to create what's called a bus. A bus is where we're taking all these multiple tracks and we're filtering down into one funnel, essentially. So the main bus that you would see is like a mix bus. A mix bus is where we can process everything in the mix, not just individual tracks on their own. So I'm gonna create a few buses and it'll kind of make sense as we're going through. So the first bus I want to have is for my vocals. So I'm gonna select all my vocal tracks just by holding the Shift key and then selecting all the yellow ones here. If I right click anywhere in this region, I can go to Add Bus for selected channels. This bus I'm gonna call Vocals. And just so you can see an example of what the bus does, if I hit solo when I'm on the vocals bus, you will notice that what you're hearing is just the vocals.
If you don't mind me asking, I'd like to take a chance.
Okay. So we can process and add plugins. As you can see, we can add inserts, plugins to the vocals bus that won't be affecting the guitars. For the guitars, I'm going to select them and go to Add Bus. I'll add this one, rename it Guitars. From the guitar, I'll just go ahead and create a bass bus to be consistent. And then we can have all of our drum tracks going to a bus, which I'll title that one Drums. And you can not only have buses, but you can have buses on top of buses. It can get very complex. So I can select guitars, bass, and drums all together. I can right click that, add bus for selected channels, and I'm gonna call this one Music. And of course we have the vocals bus. I'm gonna put this one right up here. And then vocals and music, I want those to export to what I'm gonna call my mix bus. So if I solo the mix bus, you should notice that all of the tracks have been soloed because they're all being funneled down into the mix bus. So let's hit play. So the first thing you want to do is all about gain staging. So gain staging is a process where we make sure whatever level we recorded our tracks at, we want to make sure that they're all hitting the same level. That's very important because you could record one vocal one day where you're extremely loud and you're pushing right up at the -6 region. And then you might have a day where you have a sore throat or something. And when you record, your vocals are only hitting like -12, -15. To make our vocals gain staged, there's so many different ways to doing this. What I'm gonna do is on my mix bus, I'm gonna insert a plugin. So I'm gonna click this plus button where it says inserts. I'm gonna go to my Presonus folder and I'm gonna add what's called a level meter plugin. Level meter is just gonna tell me how loud something is. I'm gonna click this little thumbtack. The thumbtack allows me to basically move this to the side, and even if I add more plugins, I'll always be able to see the level meter. So if I go through and I solo my lead vocal, for instance, I find a spot here, if I hit play,
You don't mind me asking, I'd like to take
as you can see what level's coming in. If I go to the next vocal, I hit play.
me asking, I'd like to take a chance to see if you would kindly.
Now that one's much quieter because I've got the fader down at -9. That's okay. I've also got the other one at -9. So let's just find something, for instance, like this electric guitar. Let's say that we recorded it too quietly. I just click gained it there a little bit. If I hit solo and we're looking at the level meter plugin, now I've got this guitar reading and it's saying -28. And negative 28, I want to aim for negative 18. So I need 10 more decibels of gain. You could go up to here where the clip gain tool is, or you can add an insert of mix tool. The mix tool plugin is going to allow us to add or remove gain from the signal. So like I said, I need to add 10. I'm going to add 10. And now when I hit play, now this guitar is coming in at negative 18, which is exactly what we want. So every track is going to be different. Make sure that no matter what track you do, as you go through the line, like on the bass guitar, for instance, if I hit play on that, okay, at its loudest point, it's hitting about negative 17. I want to see a healthy amount of tracks so that every track, regardless of what it is, we're hovering around negative 18. Let's go to the ride cymbal at this loud section here. Okay, that's at negative 12. So what we need to do is add a mix tool plugin. Negative 12 is about 6 decibels away. So I'm going to hit -6. And now when I play this ride cymbal track, now we're at negative 18. Very important to level match or gain stage your tracks. So I've gone through all of these tracks, solo the room one as well. That one's about negative 18. The hi-hat track, I actually don't hit the hi-hat in this song much at all. So if I hit it now, that's got a lot of the snare drum coming through. And what I'm gonna do is on the mix tool plugin, I'm just gonna give it a -5. Because really the hi-hat, since it's not being hit a lot in this song, I don't want it to be distracting in the mix. So that's the process of gain staging. Make sure all your tracks are around about negative 18. Then when you start moving the faders around, it'll make sense. How do you know that something's louder than another thing? We can look at the faders, but if you haven't gain staged, the faders really don't matter much at all. So I want to start by processing my drums, and I'm going to do the drums first because that's really a huge part of the sound, okay? The guitars, the bass, everything is going to need to coordinate with the drums. So let me solo the kick drum, and we're just going to start processing it here. Let me make a little loop section so I can click and drag above the measures. So you have this grayed out, and if I hit the question mark, now it's a loop and I can process this kick drum. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of extra noise on the kick drum. That's not the kick. I just want to hear the kick drum. So I'm going to add what Presonus calls a gate. This is a noise gate plugin. And with the noise gate, a lot of times with Presonus plugins, if you're just getting started off, click up here where it says default, and that'll bring a little drop-down menu of presets. Presets are going to get you in the ballpark of where you need to be, especially when you're starting off. This BD stands for bass drum. I'm going to click bass drum rock, and let's just see what happens. As you can hear, it's muting everything but the kick drum, but the threshold needs to be adjusted, which would be pretty common. Okay, I like where it's at, but I need to mess with the release time. The release time is going to give me a longer or more body to the kick drum. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I need to mess with the tone of the kick drum because I want it to sound nice and full. So I'm going to add an EQ plugin. Once you start adding plugins on your tracks, look for the little plus sign next to any of the tracks. That'll help you add an insert or add a plugin. So Pro EQ is just an EQ plugin from Presonus. Each of these little dots can be manipulated just like you would in your car system. We want to add some low end to this kick drum. That's pretty satisfying there. The kick drum about 60 hertz or so. You're always going to find that to be pretty fun. Now I want to find some mud. Just cutting a little bit of that mud out. That's right at 200 hertz or so. And now I want to get a more click sound on the kick drum, which is going to be up here in the treble frequencies. Okay, so here's a before and after with the EQ. Here's before. Here's after. Now, And the last thing I want to add, and I'm going to add this a lot on this rock song, is called Red Light Dist. Now that either could stand for distortion or district, I don't know, but this is a distortion plugin that can add some saturation and some thickness to our drums. Let's hit the play button and you'll see me manipulating it on the screen. Got it really crunchy right now, but what I'm doing is I'm making it overly distorted, and then I'm gonna bring down the mix knob. The mix knob is basically giving me an unaffected signal and then an affected signal, and I wanna find a balance of a little bit of both would be nice. All right, that's pretty good. Now we're gonna do some processing on the snare drum. So let's take a listen to that in solo. I'm not really gonna gate the snare drum because I am hitting the cymbals so much. It'd be really obvious if I did too much gating. So I am gonna open up an EQ and do a similar thing like I did with the kick drum. With the snare, I'm gonna roll off a lot of this low end, and I'm gonna look for the low end. What's the fundamental resonance of this snare drum? Okay, now I'm gonna add a compressor. Compressor is gonna squash down some of the dynamics. I don't wanna do it too much with the snare drum. Again, you can also open up a preset and go to drums, find a snare drum SD, find a snare drum that you like. Maybe we'll try snare drum top. Okay, snare drum top sounded pretty good. Let's listen to the drums just by themselves. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of stuff, so I maybe need to balance out some of the faders right here. For instance, the hi-hat, I don't want the hi-hat to be as loud as everything else, so I'm gonna go -9 on the fader. And the ride cymbal, I'll go -9 as well. Let's take a listen. Okay, the snare drum needs a little bit of grit, so I'm gonna go back to that red light plugin. Let's mess around with the snare drum, see if we can get it to sound a little angrier with this distortion. Okay, let's hear that room mic. I think the room is affecting a lot of the sounds. It sounds kind of roomy, so let's solo that by itself. Yeah, with the rest of the drums, I'm gonna bring the fader of the room mic down all the way, and I'm just gonna blend it in until I start to hear it sound good. Yeah, I like it at about -10. Now what I'm gonna do, instead of going through and individually processing all of these, you can spend a lot of time nitpicking that. I'm just gonna go to my drums bus and do some processing on the drums as a whole. So on the bus section, I can click the plus button here. And first thing I wanna do is grab some compression. So I'm gonna put a compressor on there. Let's go to our drums folder and take a look here. We've got one for drums bus generic, hard, live, smooth, and tight. Let's go with live. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, sounds pretty good. I'm gonna EQ the drums a little bit to give them some hype. Hype is just basically we're boosting a lot of the treble. We're finding some low end that we want to boost. That's pretty exciting. I think I'm good with that with the drums. I'm gonna go to the mix bus and add something that you're pretty much gonna add on every single song, and that is a limiter. A limiter is the last thing that happens to your song before it comes out of your speakers. And with a limiter, we're trying to keep the signal from clipping. So just in case something's coming out too loud, I'm gonna set my limiter and make sure I'm not getting any peak reduction, because as you'll hear, if I crank it, it's gonna sound a little too squashed. That is pretty squashed and good. So that is my drums, and the drums are going to be quite dynamic. They're going to be smashing in the song, but I don't want them to get squashed too much. Now we need to add some bass. Let's focus on the bass guitar here, but in context of the drums, because everything I add from here on out, I need to be listening to more than just one track. So let's hit play with the bass. All right, so with the bass, I essentially just added an EQ to give me some more low end. I'm taking out some of the muddiness that's just kind of a mid-range quality of the bass. And then there's plenty of attack because I was using a pick on the bass, so I think that sounds fine. The compressor, I loaded another preset, this bass hard rock preset, and you always want to mess with the threshold to make sure you're getting quite enough gain reduction. So right here where I've got the mouse on the right side of the compressor, you'll see a yellow bar pointing down, and basically that's telling you how much gain reduction you're getting on the compressor. So the more yellow you see, the more compressed the signal is. So again, between 3 and 6 decibels of gain reduction. Now let's add in the guitars. It's getting more and more exciting as we go. Let's take a listen here. The guitar guitars are pretty loud, so I'm going to take these over at the guitar bus. I can just hit -3 on the fader, and that keeps everything else at the same volume, but we're hearing less guitars. Same thing with the bass. I'm going to turn the bass down just a little bit. Something fun with the main electric guitar. I'm going to create an effects track. So an effects channel, basically I want this to be a chorus effect for my main electric guitar. So I'm naming it chorus. And then that effects channel, if I click where it says main, that's the output of the effects track. I want to output to my guitars bus. So it's going from my lead guitar. A lead guitar is having an effect send. I want to send this to my chorus effects. And as you'll see, we can go up here to add an insert, and we're going to add a chorus. And if I hit play, I'll just solo this chorus channel. If I hit play, I like the sound as is. Let's hear that with the rest of the guitars. And then the only other thing I'm going to say is that the lead guitar just sounds a little bit muddy. So I'm going to search for some of these low end tones and remove those. Nice. Let's listen to all of our music together now. I can go to the music bus and solo that. So we should be hearing everything but the vocals. Quite loud in my ears, but on the snare drum, listening in context, I want to remove some of that distortion because it's just a little too much. There's a lot of cymbals crashing coming through the snare drum track, and I don't want that to get covered up. Now we're at the vocals point, so we can remove our solo. And let's focus in on the lead vocal. I know on the lead vocal, I'm gonna wanna insert an EQ plugin, because with most vocals, we're rolling off some of this low end around 100 Hertz or so. Let's listen to it in context of the song and just see how competitive the volume is. I'll mute these other vocal tracks just so we're not being influenced by those.
Maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the hour. Maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the hour of its dance. Subscribe.
All right, that is pretty good. I don't think I'm gonna add any compression on this one because I do want it to sound like some of that 90s, early 2000s alt rock. Let's go back to the beginning of this song.
96% of those that watch my videos have yet to hit that button called subscribe. But if you don't mind me asking, I'd like to take the chance to see if you would kindly oblige. Hit subscribe, maybe like, so this video can have a chance
compressor because the lead vocal, it's not that the lead vocal is super dynamic, but I want to squash the vocal a little bit so that when I get to the quieter portions, I can hear myself over the music. Because when the music comes in heavy, it's just a little too much. So I'm just going to mess around with the compressor here, find a section of the lead vocal right here. We'll set our ratio to about 3:1. I'm going to remove this knee, make that 0. The attack time, I'm going to set this to 1 millisecond. Release about, let's do 45 milliseconds. And I'm going to keep an eye on the threshold and how much gain reduction we're getting on the vocal.
If you don't mind me asking, I'd like to take the chance. See if you would kindly oblige.
The makeup knob on the compressor, if you don't forget to turn up the makeup knob, at least hit the auto button so it will automatically adjust to how much gain you've lost. Because if you don't have the makeup gain, you're essentially just squashing the signal and you're not getting that elevated compressed sound. So let's take a listen now that we've got a little bit of EQ and we've got a compressor.
96% of those that watch my videos have yet to hit that button called subscribe. But if you don't mind me asking, I'd like to take the chance to see if you would kindly oblige. Hit subscribe, maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm. Hit subscribe.
Sounds good already. I'm going to take the doubles of the vocal and do something special with them. So I'm going to add a bus for the selected channels. I'm going to drag this right before the vocals. I'm going to call this background vocals, BKGV, background vocals. And I'm going to add this distortion plugin on those vocals. So if I solo them, you should hear.
It may be like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe. It may be like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm.
Okay, that's a very distorted, almost like when you do like the radio voice or whatever, like radio frequencies. So in context, that is going into my vocals bus. Let's just take a listen from the lead vocal by itself going into the big chorus section.
You would kindly oblige. Hit subscribe, maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe.
All right, it wouldn't hurt to send the oohs to the same place. So I'm going to output these. Instead of the vocals bus, they're going to the background vocals. Let's take a listen to that section again.
Hit subscribe, maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe.
Awesome. So last thing I'm going to do is on the music bus, I'm going to add a little bit of EQ just across the whole thing. Give a little bit of boost on the high end. I'm going to take out some of this 2K. I'm going to give another boost. Seems like we're boosting the low end a lot. But here we go.
Maybe.
All right, and on the mix bus, I want to do a little bit of processing. And just because it is a rock song, I keep going back to this red light distortion plugin. Let me put it before the limiter. You just click and drag these to change the order. But on the entire mix, it's going to be quite drastic. I just want to add a little bit of distortion. I'm going to mess around with the mix knob and just bring it up to add some saturation to the entire song. So if I put it on the mix bus, it's on everything in the song. So.
All subscribe. If you don't mind me asking, I'd like to take the chance to see if you would kindly oblige. Hit subscribe, maybe like, so this video can have
All right, I put a de-esser on the vocals track just to kind of tame some of the harshness. I'm gonna say gentle vocal wide. Let's see what that does.
And maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe, maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe. Maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe. Maybe like, so this video can have a chance in the algorithm's dance. Hit subscribe.
All right, so last few things I did, I put the EQ plugin on the guitars just to roll off some low end that was coming through on those. I added this de-esser on the drums. De-esser works great when you're putting it on cymbals and stuff. Some of those hits, it's not that the hits were loud, it's just that it's really harsh, okay, very sizzly. On the music bus, I did a little bit of gentle processing there just to get a little more low end out of it. So my mix bus, the main stuff, the level meter is not doing anything, just giving me some feedback. I've had the mix knob on this distortion plugin at 12%, so not doing a whole lot there. Did some more EQing, and then the limiter, I just want to make sure that the limiter is at most like -1 on the gain reduction, something around there. It's not going to be super noticeable. So now what do you do? If this is a mixed song and you're happy with it, what I would do is I click where I've got the loop region. I'm going to select as much as the song that I want to export. So the entire song is now within the loop region. Then you go up here to Song Export Mixdown. Export Mixdown is going to give you an MP3 or a WAV file. WAV file is going to be a higher quality than the MP3. It will be a larger file size though. Name the song whatever you want. This is Rock Song Final. Wouldn't be mixing unless we named it Final. I'm going to export between the loop. So make sure if you've done this way of exporting just what's within the loop, make sure you have between the loops selected. You want to output from their main stereo bus, and then I'm going to click OK. As soon as I do, now it's processing the song, putting it into a file that we can listen to. So here is the final rock song. All right, as we listen to the final mix of this rock song, I want to thank you so much for watching. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for more content just like this. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions. I'll do my best to try to answer whatever issues you might be having with Presonus Studio One or recording in general. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
96% of those that watch my videos have yet to hit that button called subscribe. But if you don't mind me asking, I'd like to take the chance to see